Hello, my name's Daniel Guiney, and welcome to this Global Perspectives, a guide to Component 2, the individual report for the CIE exam board. So, why do you have to do this report and what's it worth? Well, if you look at the assessment overview for this IGCSE, you'll see that there are three different components that give you your overall grade. And on the right hand side, circled here in red, is component 2, and this is the individual report, and it's really worth its weight in gold. This report is worth 30% then of your overall grade, and you will be scored out of a maximum of 60 marks. You need to research one topic area, and the report you write will be between 1,500 and a maximum of 2,000 words. And it's worth noting it will be externally marked. Okay, so what will you actually write your report about, this 2,000 word maximum report? Well, the exam board, CIE, give you a choice of 8 topics that you can write about. They are belief systems, biodiversity and ecosystem loss, changing communities, the digital world, family, humans and other species, sustainable living, and trade and aid. Now, a little later in this video, we'll talk through what these topics actually mean and explore some of the issues within them to help us formulate a question that will be of interest to you. Here's some things to consider. Perhaps most importantly, which of the topics from that choice of 8 are of the most interest to you? And what issues within those topics are of interest to you? What have you seen on the news this year? Can you find relevant sources of information, and can you analyse and evaluate these sources? And do you have the confidence to write 2,000 words about one of those topics? Okay, so how do you actually make or generate your global question? The question should be focused on an issue within the topic. You need to analyse the cause and consequences, propose a course of action to resolve it, and reflect on how your personal perspective changes or develops. The title should also be of a good manageable scope, so don't make it too broad. Think the Goldilocks rule. Make it just right and manageable within the 2,000 word limit. Okay, so if you chose belief systems as your topic, perhaps the most obvious area you might explore is religion. So issues within belief systems might include things like, well, does religion hold back scientific knowledge? Or is religion a source for good in the world? But belief systems don't just have to be about religion. You might look at political belief systems or public perceptions. So, for example, many people often think there's more immigrants in society than there really is, or that there's more benefit fraud going on than there really is. So, you might explore the reasons that people hold different belief systems and how important they are. If biodiversity and ecosystem loss interests you as a topic, you might want to research what's been happening in the news, for example, in places like the Amazon, which was on fire, the lungs of the planet not too long ago, and ask yourself issues like, what is the effect of human activity on biodiversity? Likewise, you might look at things like animal trafficking in Hong Kong, or how attacks on white rhinos in order to feed Chinese medicine is an issue. So, an issue within this topic would include ecosystems and their effect on human activity and vice versa. Changing communities is a fascinating topic, particularly for international students. There are lots of issues within this, but they include things like shrinking cities. Tokyo is losing people and becoming a smaller city. What might the implications of that be? Loneliness and social problems, online communities, deindustrialization, social mobility. You might want to explore things like garden city and talking about ways that rapid urbanization might change other areas in the world. So, changing communities, there are lots of issues within that also. The digital world is always a popular choice of topic, and again, there's a range of very contemporary issues within it. You might want to explore things like the effect of computer use on our brains, how the digital world makes us internationally connected, the impact of cyberbullying as a result of the digital world, or maybe the effects on trade and culture. You might research things like Cambridge Analytica and Facebook and how big data is being used through the digital world. So, again, lots and lots of issues if you chose this topic. Family is a fascinating choice of topic as well. Again, lots of issues within there, including family values, the effects of migration on families, one child policies, families getting older or people having children later. So, again, you might want to research what's in the news in terms of family. Humans and other species is a really fascinating topic which many students often choose to look at. Issues within this might include things like animal rights, or the differences between humans and animals, extinction and species loss. So, for example, you might look at smuggling endangered wildlife, or ask yourself about animal testing. Look at how, for example, the Big Mac might be a delicacy in one country, but in India, the cow is a sacred animal. So there's lots of questions and issues you could draw out of this topic. Sustainable living and sustainable development is a great topic as well. Issues within this might include things like the role of governments in sustainable development, the use of wind farms, or vertical farming in places like Singapore. You might look at green cities and ask yourself what their benefits are. So many, many issues about lifestyle and status and changing attitudes, waste and the environment that could be drawn out from sustainable living as a topic. And the final choice of topic is trade and aid. Again, issues within this, you might want to explore disaster relief, or the role of charities, development aid and the role of businesses, the role of individuals, growth and progress within trade and aid. Okay, so here's one possible matrix. There are some prefixes to questions on the left that you may use. It's not exhaustive, but you should always aim to get both the issue and the topic into your question. So, for example, how far should governments act to reduce cyberbullying caused by the digital world? Have a play around with this matrix and see if you can come up with a question that includes the topic and issue for your chosen topic. Okay, you've got your topic and your question and the issue within it. How do you actually write your report? Well, CIE say that there's no one exact method, so you can write it how you want, but they do provide a specified mark scheme. So what I've done in the next few, in this little section, is put together a suggested structure that will help you hit the important parts of that mark scheme. So to begin with, you'll write your question at the top, which will be about one of those 8 topics. You'll have identified an issue within it and refined that question with your teacher or supervisor. You then need an introduction, a justification of the issues, and for 3 issues, a discussion of perspectives, causes, and consequences before talking about courses of action and offering a conclusion with a personal perspective. Okay, so here is a more detailed breakdown of my suggested structure. You can see the question is your title. You're probably looking at about 200 words for the introduction, just telling me what your question is and explaining its relevance. You're then going to write me about 100 words for the issues. Justify the issues that you're writing about. Why are they important? Make sure there's at least 2, but I suggest 3. And then you're going to move on to the perspective section. This is probably the meat of the report. So you're looking at about 1,000 words. Make sure there's a good spread of global and national and local perspectives. Causes and consequences are probably going to be embedded into the perspective. And due to a different view, people will see these causes and consequences differently. You're then going to compare the cause and consequences in about 200 words before offering courses of action. So again, I'd recommend about 300 words there. You're going to conclude with a personal perspective of about 200 words where you explain your viewpoint and how it's changed through the writing of your paper before offering any reflections or conclusions. And obviously, you need to cite every source you use and make sure it's wholly analytical. So, is it worth you knowing how it will be marked before you begin researching and writing it? And the answer is obviously yes. Now, it is externally marked on 3 different areas. Research, analysis, and evaluation is worth 40 of the 60 marks. Reflection is worth 5, and communication 15. And obviously on this page, you can see a range of different marks. So I'm only going to talk to the top band here because my students tend to be very high achieving. But you can see for the 40 mark research section, you're looking at researching and analysing a balanced range of relevant information, analysing in depth and proposing well-developed and relevant courses of action. You'll also need to evaluate sources throughout. That's to get you between 33 to 40 marks. For the reflection, this is only worth 5 marks, but it's still important to hit as highly as you can. So you can see there for top marks, you're looking at justifying a personal perspective using full evidence and reasoning. And this is why when you choose your question, it's sometimes a good idea to use something that's of real interest or relevance to you or the place that you're from. And the last part is communication for 15 marks. So for this, the report needs to be very well structured, cohesive and comprehensive. So written well, relevant arguments, evidence and perspectives are presented clearly and effectively, and citation and referencing is great throughout. So that's what will hit you towards top marks for this section of the mark scheme.